Well, I'm just off on my Hamvention road trip. It is Monday, May 13th, 8 a.m. And I just left the gas station with a full tank of gas. And I'm on my way to Hamvention. I've been a ham for 33 years. It'll be 34 in December. And this is my first trip, so I'm very excited about it. I'm planning to take my time on the way out. I'm leaving from Concord, New Hampshire, by the way. I'm right in downtown. I'm just about half a block from the state capitol building, which is over that way. You can't see it, unfortunately. And I'm going to spend my first night in Schenectady, New York. And I plan to do some kind of a travelogue of this trip with some short video clips. I'm hoping to stop and do some POTA activations along the way. But the bands have been really terrible with these solar flares. So I don't know how successful I'll be. I do have an HF rig in the car here, so I will be listening on the way to see what kind of shape the bands are and what bands might be best. But I'm hoping to use my Elecraft KH1 for the POTA activations on the trip. So tonight I stay in Schenectady, or just outside Schenectady. The next night, tomorrow night, I'll be staying in Erie, Pennsylvania. And I'm hoping to stop along the way between Schenectady and Erie and take a stop by Niagara Falls to Niagara Falls State Park on the American side of the falls. And then the third night I will be in Dayton, or not in Dayton, in Fairborn, where I'm going to be attending 4 days in May the next morning. So that's it from here. I'm just about to get on to Interstate 93 South. And hopefully the late afternoon I'll be arriving in Schenectady after a few nice stops.
Exit left.
Well, I'm in Hopkinton, New Hampshire, just one town over from Concord, and I'm getting off of the highway because of the route I'm taking out to Schenectady. The next hour or so of my drive is going to be on two-way highways, two-way roads, no interstate highways. That was Interstate 89 I just got off of. It's a nice drive. It's pretty. Not a lot of cell phone coverage for a big part of this drive in New Hampshire. I'll be crossing the border into Vermont in about an hour. And we're going to go over the Connecticut River, which is the border between western New Hampshire and the east border of Vermont. I commuted on this road for about 25 years between Concord and Henniker, New Hampshire. And it's a wonderful commute because all the traffic is going the other direction in the mornings. Everyone's going into Concord, not out. And the sun's at your back driving in, and the sun's at your back driving home. At your back, rather. And it's a beautiful road. There have been quite a few head-on collisions on this highway over the years. This is routes 202 and 9 in New Hampshire, because it was originally designed to be an interstate as far as the grade and the tightness of the corners. But then at some point they decided to downgrade it to a two-lane highway. But because of the design of it, you can drive 75 miles an hour on this road really without any problems. Speed limit's 55. And we're just coming up to Henniker, which is the home of New England College, and Pat's Peak Ski Area, one of the few ski areas in the area that has lights. So they have a vibrant after-school ski program in the winter, because here in the winter it gets dark around 4:15, 4:30 p.m. And with the lights, they can keep skiing until 8, 9 o'clock at night, whereas most ski areas have to shut down around 4:30. Well, 40 meters is just in terrible shape this morning. I've got an S9 noise level. I couldn't hear any signals at all on the CW portion. It's about 8:30 a.m. now. I even tuned in to the frequency for the eCars Net, the East Coast Amateur Radio Service. They run a net from about 7:30 a.m. to 1 p.m. Every morning during the weekdays. That's specifically for mobile operators to check in. And can't hear anything there either, still an S9 noise level. Well, this being my first trip to Hamvention, I wanted to attend one of the banquets. I knew that I wanted to go to 4 days in May. Having been a QRP operator exclusively for quite a few years. I'm not exclusively QRP now, but I do still run QRP quite a bit. I did, in 2015, I'd just gotten my KX3, and that was quite a bit of money I'd invested in that radio. And it was the first time I'd ever bought a new HF transceiver also, and I didn't want it to just sit there gathering dust after I used it for a few weeks or a few months. So I decided to participate in the North American QRP CW Club's awards program. And they have an award called the QSO A Day Award, where you can get a certificate emailed to you if you make a QRP CW QSO every day for either a month or a string of months or for the whole year. And so I set my goal as being for the whole year. And at first it was pretty tough. I didn't think I was going to make it, but after the first couple of weeks I kind of settled into a routine and really became quite easy most days. The award counts each day according to UTC time. So on the East Coast where I live, that would mean the day would start at either 7 p.m. or 8 p.m. depending on whether or not we were in daylight savings time or standard time. So every night around that time I'd go up to the shack, make sure I finished all my other activities for the day, and I'd look for a CW QSO. And like I said, it was pretty easy most days. There were a few difficult days. Probably the most difficult day was in August that year. My wife and I decided to go down to New York City for our birthdays. Mine's August 13th, hers is August 12th. And we often will go down there. And this time we were staying in Queens. And I brought my KX3, and I brought a ham stick, a couple of ham sticks, and a mag mount for the roof of the car, thinking I'd be able to make a QSO from the hotel parking lot, and I could not. That was probably the deepest, darkest RF hole I think I've ever been in. So I finally went to bed probably around 1 a.m. after giving up, and I thought, well, I have to do it tomorrow. And tomorrow I think I had either until 7 or 8 p.m. I can't remember which it is in the summer right now. But we started heading home, and we took our time, and it's for us. If you drove it straight, it's about 4.5 hours from New York City to our house in Concord. But we had young kids, and so we would stop more often. In fact, I even stopped in Newington. It was actually my birthday that day that we were driving home, and I said to my wife, "Hey, how about we stop at the ARRL headquarters for my birthday?" And she said yes, and that was a blast. I got a really wonderful tour. I got to operate W1AW, and of course I should have asked the station manager there, I think his name's Joe, if I could turn the power down to QRP level and just make a contact, because that would have worked for the award, but I didn't think to, or maybe I was nervous to ask him about that. So I made maybe half a dozen contacts as W1AW, which was a total blast. If you have an opportunity to do that, you definitely should. And anyway, I still hadn't made the contact, and we left there. It was probably 4 o'clock. So we're looking at just a few hours left before I wouldn't be able to complete the QSO for that day. And by now I'd been doing this over 8 months, so I was really nervous, getting pretty nervous. So we were traveling north still. We were out of Connecticut into Massachusetts, and I just took a random exit, and we found a city park somewhere with a playground, which was really helpful. So my wife took the kids to the playground, and I got on the car with the ham stick on the roof, and I think it was probably 20 meters. And I finally did make a contact, and it took a while. It took a few tries, calling different stations. And of course, when you're under pressure like that, and somewhat you're trying to work someone, and then they come back to somebody else, very frustrating. But that was probably the hardest day. So I did end up making it through the entire year, 365 days. I got the award. And I continued on after that. And because I didn't want to stop. And I continued into July of the following year. And what happened in July was we were traveling again, and we were down visiting some of my wife's family down in Tennessee, and my dad had a heart attack. And so we ended up the following morning driving straight through from Tennessee back to New Hampshire. And with the kids in the car, I can't remember exactly how old they were at the time. Let's see, this was 2016, so my youngest son would have been 2, and my daughter would have been 5. So we got in the car about 7 a.m., and we drove back to New Hampshire. It took exactly 24 hours, and we didn't spend the night anywhere, but we did stop for meals, for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And so that's why it took us 24 hours. And I tend to be someone who drives the speed limit, so I don't make as good time as some people who might be going 75, 80 on the highway. Personally, I just find it a lot easier to set the cruise control, the speed limit, and not stress out, about getting pulled over. So anyway, so I stopped. I didn't make my QSO that day, so that was the end of the streak. But I think I missed 2 days, and then I picked it up again, and I finished the rest of that year. And so I got the award for 11 months out of the 12 months from the NAQCC that year. And then the following year in 2017, I think we weren't far into January when I missed a day, and I just stopped doing it at that point. But I will say one thing about doing the QSO every day is it really sharpened my CW skills. It was dramatic by the end of the first year. I started to really like doing contests. I'd always avoided contests. When there was a big contest on, I just wouldn't get on the air. But if your goal is to have at least one QSO on CW with QRP every day, contest is a great opportunity. And what I would do is I would make the one contact, and I'd make a few more, and I started having fun. So now I really do look forward to CW contests. And the other thing, in addition to my speed getting more comfortable, is I lost that fear of calling somebody. I don't know if you've experienced this, but you want to contact somebody, you hear somebody calling CQ, and maybe they're going a little faster than you're comfortable with, and so you're hesitant to call them, and you wait, and then somebody else calls them. And having that goal to always have a contact every day, I got over that fear pretty quickly. So I had a lot more good rag chew QSOs with people I wouldn't have called otherwise. Anyway, that was a really long story. I can't remember how I started this part of the video, but that's what's going on here. We're on our way. We're between Henniker and Keene, New Hampshire. Keene is right near the border with Vermont, and it's the home of Keene State College. I pulled over at this historic marker here on the drive. This is a stone arch bridge, which is built without mortar, and it stays up, according to the sign, solely by expert shaping of its arch stones. And it's a typical style of bridge that was built around here in the early days of New Hampshire. I guess it says here in the first half of the 19th century. And it's a significant part of American architectural heritage. So we'll go take a look at the bridge. I have a cousin who lives on a lake not far from here, and it's a man-made lake. And apparently there's one of these bridges underwater in the lake because they flooded a little village when they built the lake. Well, here we are at the border between New Hampshire and Vermont. Down in this valley is the Connecticut River. And you can see we're going to drive over the newer of the two bridges. And after I get across the border, I'm going to stop and have some breakfast. Vermont. I was about 2.5 miles on Interstate 91 South, and then it put me off onto Route 9 here. And it looks like I'm going to be on another two-way road until we get all the way into all the Albany, New York area. This is such a pretty drive, though. I'm really enjoying it. We're climbing Hogback Mountain, and I'll stop at the top because there's a nice overlook up there. I did think about stopping at one of two state parks I'm going right by here in Vermont, but they're not open for the season yet. And when I looked at Google Street View, it looks like they have gates closed right at the beginning of the park. We're right off the road here, off Route 9. So I don't want to just pull over in the car on the side of this road and make some contacts. I'd rather use my KH1. So I'm planning to stop at the Schoharie Crossing State Historic Site in New York State. I found it online. It's one of the POTA parks. Looks like a beautiful spot. It's right on the Erie Canal, and I guess it's the remnants of a very old aqueduct. Like I said, it looked pretty, and I checked their website when I stopped for breakfast, and while the visitor center is not open today, the picnic area is open daily from, I think it's like 7 a.m. to sunset or something like that. So plenty of opportunity for me to go there. I did hear some signals on 40 meters, a couple of CW signals. So that's picking up a little bit. When I stopped, I put my 20-meter resonator on the mast on the back of the car. Haven't heard anything yet on 20, but I'm hoping by the time I get to Schoharie, it will be. By the way, you've probably heard some beeping from the car. That's the warning system letting me know I'm getting too close to the lines. And I've got it set to be very sensitive, so even if I get close to the line, it will beep here. I'll pull over right here, you'll see. So if you hear that, please accept my apologies for the annoying beeping during the videos. And there we go again. All right, we will pause the video here and pick it up again at the top of Hogback Mountain. Well, here we are at the Scenic Overlook at the top of Hogback Mountain in Vermont. It's just a beautiful day. Now we're coming down the other side of Hogback Mountain. Looks like we're less than 2 hours away from the Schoharie Crossing National State Historic Site. And I think we're probably just about 15 or 20 minutes from the New York state line. I missed the state line because there was no sign that said welcome to New York, but we are in New York State now, in the town of Pittstown. And you can see I'm still driving on these small two-way state highways, and I think before too long I might get myself onto an interstate. I hope so. I'm at the Schoharie Crossing State Historic Site. It's just outside of Amsterdam, New York. And we've got some clouds now, but I'd say it's in the low 70s. A little bit of humidity in the air. It's really quite nice. That is part of, I think, the aqueduct or a bridge. Let me zoom in a little bit for you there. So I don't know too much about this area, except that this is part of the Erie Canal system. And this is called the Overlook Trail that I'm on. And it says it's just a 1/4 mile long. So I'm trying to decide whether or not I'm going to try an activation here. The bands have been totally dead all morning. And it's about 1 p.m. here now. And then when I pulled in and tuned around on 20 meters on the HF Mobile, I did hear a few stations, a couple even pretty strong, and some really weak. And when I say pretty strong, I mean, like an S1 or an S2. There's a little chipmunk right in front of me who doesn't seem to be scared of me at all. Oh, there he goes. So this is the Schoharie Aqueduct. And some nice information on the sign there about it. Some stonework here that I guess is part of something from the original canal system. It's a beautiful spot, and there's a place to sit. So I'm going to pull out the KH1 and see if I can make any contacts. Okay, so I'm spotted, and I heard some very faint signals. Let's see. I've got the audio volume turned all the way up. Just goes to show you, with QRP, you're always loud somewhere. I'm 599 in Georgia. All right, let's go QRT. Actually, I think I won't go QRT according to POTA. I might try a couple of contacts from the car with a 100-watt rig to see if that makes a difference. So I'll pack things up and we'll head back to the car. I'm just about back to the car, and I am going to try to make some contacts for this activation with the ICOM 7100 that's in the car. I won't be able to video. I don't really have it set up for videoing in the car today, but I'll let you know afterwards if I was successful. It'd be a shame to come all this way. It's like a 4 to 5 hour drive to get to this spot and not have had a successful activation. Well, I was able to save that activation. I got to the car, fired the IC7100 up on the same frequency with 100 watts, and in about 15 minutes I made 12 contacts. So the bands are starting to improve a bit. I can't help but wonder if I could have finished that activation with my KH1 if I'd kept trying, but I hadn't put any bug spray on, and the bugs were starting to eat me up, and I do have about another hour and 45 minutes to drive before I get to the hotel. So I'm glad I did it that way. I might try a hotel room activation tonight with the KH1. We'll see. But right now I've just pulled over at the Mohawk Valley Welcome Center off Interstate 90, and I'm going to take a look around. This is a beautiful spot, and you know, this is what I think I'm going to love about the POTA program is I never would have pulled over and stopped at the Schoharie Crossing State Historic Site if I hadn't found it on the POTA.app website and seen it as a possible place I could activate. And I just had a great time. It's a beautiful spot. I had some nice contacts, and it's just fun to combine, you know, the ham radio operating with a road trip. Okay, next stop, the hotel. Well, I'm in the hotel room, And it's about 8:30, almost 9 o'clock at night. And I tried to make some QSOs here with no success. The first thing I did was I strung up about 25, 30 feet of wire, kind of in a zigzag pattern across the window. I'm in a ground floor room. And then I stretched a counterpoise of about the same length on the floor. And the KH1 could not tune that on either 40 or 30 meters. So then I put the coil on, and I called CQ. I got a 1-to-1 match with no problem with the whip and the AXE1 coil. And I called CQ on 30 meters for a while with nothing, and then I switched to 20 meters and called CQ at least 10 times. Let me get a little closer here. You can see I got exactly one spot on the reverse beacon network there, but it was a pretty good one. It was from Europe. And it looks like I was pretty low, 4 dB. And I also noticed on 30 and 40 when I tried it, I was having S6, S7, even S9 background noise on 40. So that definitely wasn't working. Well, you can also say I've got the KH1 charging here. I'm using my Pro Audio Engineering power supply that I bought for the KX3 years ago. That's it down on the floor there. And that's a real good option to bring on the road because it puts out a clean 14 volts and it seems to be just perfect for charging the KH1. So I'm going to hit the sack and we'll start off again tomorrow. 73.